Welcome back, Cat 5 class. We're going to go over problem 826. Okay, and as you can see, this is in millimeters. You can tell by these large numbers. All right, so let's take a look at the 3D model. Okay, and this should look familiar to you. I think we have done this problem in the past in practicing front, top, and side views. All right, so let's take a look at the front view. Okay, so there we have the front view and top view. And this is a tangent line. We do not draw tangent lines. Okay, so this goes from a flat to a cylindrical surface, as you can see. So in real life, if I was to turn off the seams, it'll go away, right? Okay, let me turn on the edges again. All right, so, and we have the side view. Now let's take a look at the answer key. Okay, so here's the isometric view with the dimensions. Let's take a look at the answer key on that one. All right, so here the author, she decided to just go with two views. You can probably go with the third view, the side view. Okay, so I think either one will work, 3 views or 2 views. Here the author, she decided to only go with 2 views, front and top view. All right, so let's go ahead and complete the front view. All right, so actually we do have the right side view. It's just a copy from one of your old problems. I think it was chapter 3 or chapter 4. All right, so let me go to the home tab and let me change some of the line weights for this video so we can see it a lot easier and change some of the colors. So I'm going to go to layers. Instead of the magenta, I'll use yellow for my construction lines just so we can see it. And wide visible object lines have a line weights of 0.60. I'm going to go up just so we can see it. I don't recommend you do this at work, right? This is just for the video. Okay, let's go to the red hidden lines. Lighten it up a little bit. Instead of 0.30 or 0.35 for the hidden lines, I'll make them a little bit thicker again just for this video. Same thing with the dimensions. Layer, and I'll do the same thing for the center layer. All right, I think I took care of everything. We can always go back if I missed something. All right, so we're going to ignore the right side view. We can always delete it once we're done. Okay, so the front view, we're obviously missing the arc. And by the way, if you don't see the line weights, here's the icon for line weights, right? If you don't see the icon for line weights, go to the very last tab in the status bar and turn on the line weight, or I should say load the line weight icon into the status bar by clicking on this. If it has a check mark, then it's loaded in the status bar. All right, so let's go ahead and draw the arc. So let's go to the wide visible object layer. Go to the arc command, and let's go center, start, end. Let's say I wasn't paying attention and I just clicked on the first one. Actually, yeah, let's do the first one just to change it up from the previous videos. Let's do the first one. First one, 3-point arc. You always have the option to change your mind and go with the center first, right? There it is, or locating our center. So you do have that option. I'll just leave it as a 3-point arc and instead define the quadrants. So I'm going to go from this quadrant point to that one and to this one, and it looks good. Okay, it looks good. Yep. Okay, it's centered about the circle. Okay, we also have an object line going straight down from this vertex. So let's use the line command from this vertex, go straight down. And there it is. And right click enter to exit the command. All right, so let's go ahead and finish up this front view. Let's go to the green center layer and throw in our green center mark. All right, so let's go to the annotate tab and use the center mark command. Click on the circle. There it is. Oh, I should have gone with the larger one, right? The arc. So this is incorrect, but let's say I forgot, so I'm going to hit escape. So if you forget to extend it beyond the arc, I will take points off. I did not in chapter 3, but from here on I am taking on And in chapter 4, if chapter 4 or chapter 8 you forget to extend your center lines beyond the arc, I will take points off. Also on the test, I will take points off. In chapter 3, I decided to take it easy on you guys, but not anymore. Alright, so, and let's extend. Oh, went too far, way too far. Let me turn off object snap so I can have control over that extension line. Okay, hit escape. Now in this case, we're not going to overextend the green center line because the top is not symmetrical to the bottom. As you can see, it's not symmetrical. Okay, so we'll leave it the way it is. All right, so let's take a look at the answer key, and it looks like we have taken care of all the object lines and center lines. Now let's complete the top view, and again, we're ignoring the right side view. You can get away with not creating the right side view. If you want to do it for kicks and fun, go for it. All right, so let's go ahead and add the red hidden lines to represent the hole and the center or the axis of the hole. And we also have a red hidden line representing this wall here or the edge here, right? So red hidden line. And we also have a red hidden line here, right? We cannot see the inside edge here, so we need to represent it with the red hidden line. I know it's small, but you have to draw it in there. Okay, let me zoom in just to show you. There it is. All right. Okay, so let's go to AutoCAD. Okay, our front view is complete. Let's go to the top view. Okay, so let's draw in our red hidden lines. Actually, since we are in the center line, let's take care of our center line first. So let's go to the Home tab, Line Command, and don't connect to the front view. It has to be a separate center line. Don't go with the center line from one view to another. That is incorrect. Okay, let me turn on Object Snap. And we have our center line. Okay, now we need our red hidden lines. So let's go to the red hidden layer, Line Command, and from the left quadrant of the hole, right, let's draw our first hidden line. Right click Enter, and let's draw our second one from the right quadrant of the hole. Go straight up, and right click Enter. All right, so now some of you are like, teacher, the LTS, right? The line type scale. Okay, we'll do that at the end, right? Don't cry about the LTS. It's okay. All right, so now we have a red hidden line right here. So use Line Command, and from this vertex, go straight up. And right click Enter. And also finally the red hidden line here. So just to prove it to you that we do have one there, if we look under here, right, there's this edge that we cannot see. Now, we're not going to draw the entire red hidden line across because we do have the solid object line that's overriding this portion of the red hidden line. But we can draw this one here, this red hidden line, because there's nothing here to block it or override it, right? Okay, so, excuse me, let's continue on with AutoCAD. So we're going to draw a red hidden line. So again, it's representing the edge here. Okay, so if you were to draw the red hidden line going all the way across, it's not necessary because it's overwritten by the white, thicker, visible object line. So we're going to go ahead and just shorten it. And there it is. Hit Escape. Zoom in. There it is. There's the red hidden line. Okay, so it looks like we're done with our lines. We can do our dimensions next. Let me turn off the construction layer. Yep, looks good. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete this view. Okay, it's not needed, but if you want to go ahead and complete that on your own, go for it. All right, so now we can mess with the LTS. Let me double click on the wheel to do a zoom fit. Okay, so LTS, again, you want to wait towards the end once you have all your lines in place, red hidden lines, green center lines, white object lines. Okay, so now we can type in LTS in the command line, LTS, line type scale, not as easy as 1, 2, 3, right? And enter. So currently it's set to 0.5. Let me increase it to 1. Okay, so I'm going to increase it from 0.5 to a scale of 1, and I'm going to hit enter. In 3, 2, 1, don't blink, enter. Ta-da! You blinked, right? Okay, if you want to increase it some more, we can type in LTS again. LTS, enter, and let's increase it at 2. See what we get from 1 to 2, and don't blink. And 3, 2, 1, don't blink. Enter. Okay, maybe that's a little cleaner, right? I'll leave it up to you. I'll let you play with the LTS. Okay, let's throw in some dimensions. Okay, so we can pick this as our datum or this one. Either one will work. So here the author, she decided to go with this surface as our datum and dimension from back to front, back to front, back to front. And then we also have these, which makes more sense to place them on the left versus the right, even though we always try and group dimensions together. The 75 millimeters makes more sense here than placing it on this side than having a long extension line. Same thing with the 150. We can place it over here, but then we would have a long extension line cutting through the object and placing it here. I mean, it's acceptable, but it just looks cleaner if we separate them into 2 groups. All right, so let's go ahead and dimension the top, and let's also include the 225. We'll do this one first. Okay, so let's go over to the dimensions layer. All right, so let's use a linear dimension. Let's go from this point to this one. There's our first dimension. Obviously, this is way too tight, so we're gonna have to move. Let's get it out of the way now. Let's move this top view. Don't try to squeeze in the dimensions and try and make it look like it doesn't look tacky, right? When you try and squeeze in too many chairs between a table and a coffee table, or a table and some other table, etc., and the couch. So let's go ahead and move this outward. So I'm gonna lasso around it just like a cowboy or cowgirl. Hee-haw! Here it is. Select it all. Use the move command. And we want to have ortho on, right? So we can move only horizontally or vertically. There it is. Make some room. Ta-da! Now we'll have room for the dimensions in the front view. Do not force them in there. Okay, so let's dimension now from back to front using linear dimension. So let's go from back to front. So there's our first dimension. And let's use the grip to move it in. Oh, it doesn't seem to like it. Okay, that's okay. And hit escape on the keyboard. There it is. There's our first dimension. If you want to stick the arrows outward or the text outward, it's fine with me. Okay, let's go to line command again. This vertex to the next one. And line command again. Okay, and let's move this one a little bit outward. There it is. Okay, hit escape. Okay, so now let's dimension this side. So linear dimension from this vertex to this one. And once again, we don't want to place it here, actually here, because then we have that long extension line, as you can see. So we're better off placing it here. Looks cleaner. And let's use the grips. And let's move it in. There it is. That's good enough. 75 millimeters. And now we need to dimension to this corner. So let's use a linear dimension. And there we have it. All right. So let's move on to the front view. Roll the wheel to zoom in and out, or double click to zoom fit. That's double clicking on the wheel to do a zoom fit. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the answer key. We're going to cheat. Okay, and I know it's frustrating at first to try and dimension something on your own from scratch with no experience. And I mentioned this before. Dimensioning takes a lot of practice. So yeah, even with young engineers or interns that we work with at our department or any place I've worked at, they always struggle on setting up their dimensions, their views, and it just takes practice. Okay, so hopefully by the end of the semester you'll be at least a novice, right, and not a beginner. It takes years to become an expert at creating drawings, and even though after 15, 30 years you still make mistakes. All right, so let's move on. Okay, so we're not going to dimension from this datum nor this datum. In this case, the center of the hole is more important. So actually, this axis of the hole is our datum to dimension from. So we're going to go from here to here, right? And dimension. Now notice that we don't dimension from this datum center to this line. So the reason is they're saying that the 125 is more important than the, let's see, 375 minus 125 is what, 250? So instead of putting a dimension of 250 here, they're saying the 125 is more important. Okay, so maybe something slides in here. All right, so, and they're telling us the tab here, this dimension of 75 is more important than the dimension from the center, going all the way across to this point, which is 75 plus 375 is 450. So instead of drawing a dimension of 450, here we're saying the 75 millimeters is more important than the 450. Okay, so that's the reason it's dimensioned this way and not like the others. Okay, so we'll throw in those dimensions. Again, diameter for circles, for circular holes, diameter. If it's an arc, semicircle, you go with radius. And notice the arrowheads always point to the center. And then we'll dimension from the bottom up. So we can use this as our datum or the top. Okay, so we're going to go bottom to corner, bottom to corner, bottom to corner, and bottom to corner. Notice we don't have an overall height. What is the overall height? Well, it's just 150 plus 150, right? It's 150 from the center to this quadrant, 150 from the center to that quadrant for a total of 2 times 150, 300. Okay, so we don't need the 300. If you do decide to place the 300, it's considered double dimensioning, so you would have to place it in parentheses. All right, so let's throw in the dimensions. Okay, so let's go with linear, linear dimension. So there's the 375. Let's go further out and make room for the smaller one. And instead of going from here to here, they're saying, nope, the dimension here is more important. So if we go, once again, linear, from here to here, they're saying this one is more important. All right, so this is considered double dimensioning. You cannot have all three. You can only have 2 out of the 3. Because we can calculate the third one by either adding or subtracting the other 2. Okay, so we know this is 250 because 375 minus 125 is 250. So if it can be calculated, you have to get rid of it. One or the other has to go. So here the author decided to say that this one is more important. So we'll take this one out, delete it. And there it is. And also, instead of going from our datum here to this point, this dimension is considered more important. Okay, so linear dimension from this point to this point. And you want to line it up with the existing dimension. Okay, you can also line it up with this one instead. Either one is correct. Actually, it depends on who you ask. All right, so I prefer it up here, but we can leave it lined up with the lower one. Okay, so let me hit escape to deselect. All right, so we have those dimensions. Now let's go bottom to top. Okay, so linear dimension, bottom to top. Next one, bottom to top. And again, you want to give it some nice spacing. Linear dimension again, bottom to top. And one more, linear dimension, bottom to this point here. Okay, and again, you try and group them together as a family or siblings, right? And once again, if we were to throw in the overall height, linear dimension, overall. Okay, so we have the 300. Let me move it further to the right, more room. Okay, so let me hit escape to deselect. Okay, now the machinists, when they look at this, they're gonna prefer to dimension the radius and not dimension the overall height. Okay, so we'll come back and fix the 300. Okay, so let's do the small circle first. Small circle, if it's a circle, we go diameter for the dimension. There it is. And for the radius, for the arc, we go with the radius. Okay, so arcs, we use radius. Okay, it doesn't matter which one is at the bottom. We can move the radius downward if we want, or leave it up there. It doesn't matter. One thing you don't want is a flat leader. You don't want a flat or vertical leader. Try and avoid it. Okay, you want to give it some angle, a 45, a 60, a 30-degree angle. Okay, so either one is acceptable. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so once again, we're double dimensioning here, the 150 and the 300. They cannot coexist. One of them has to go. So the machinist actually prefers to know what the radius is over the overall dimension. The only way we would prefer the 300 over the 150 radius is if this has to slide in some type of rectangular. Maybe there's another part that's rectangular in shape and it has to slide in some type of pocket. Okay, so I'm just making something up as I go. So if this object has to slide into another object, then the 300 would be more important. But since we don't know anything about the part, then chances are we're going to have to keep the radius. Okay, so the 300 has to be deleted, or you can always double click and throw in a parentheses. So let me zoom in, double click on the text, and let's throw in the parentheses. I'm going to use the arrows to go all the way far right, parentheses, and then click away. And let me hit escape to get out of anything I'm in. Okay, now we can go ahead and space it out. There it is. Hit escape to deselect. Okay, so that's acceptable. Okay, same thing with the overall. Hey, teacher, what about the overall length of this view? Yeah, same thing. It can be calculated. The overall length of this front view is just 75 plus 375. So that's 450 plus 150. So that gives us 600, right? Did I do my math correctly? 150 plus 375 plus 75 is 600 millimeters. Okay, so if you want, you can put an overall length, but it has to be in parentheses. Okay, so it's over. If we can calculate it, we can leave it out, or we can place it in parentheses. Okay, so let's throw in that linear dimension. Now we prefer to put it up here, but then it's going to intersect these leaders, so I'll put it down here. And there it is, 600. And it would have to go with parentheses. So it's a good idea to throw in these reference. Again, if it's in parentheses, the inspector or the machinist just sees this as reference only. But it is good to throw in these dimensions like the 300 in parentheses and the 600 in parentheses, so it's easier to order the material. Okay, so somebody has to order a block of aluminum to be machined down to this part. So they'll look at the overall dimension, 600 millimeters. They may order a block of aluminum that's maybe 625 millimeters with an overall height of 325. So you want a block that's slightly larger because we're going to end up machining the part. Same thing with the top view. Whoever orders the material to be machined, okay, they'll look at the 225 for the depth and maybe go with 250 instead, just slightly bigger, because you want to be able to remove some material when you machine to have a nice clean surface at the end. All right, so let me hit escape and deselect, double click to do a zoom fit. Okay, I think we're done. Let's take a look at the answer key. It's not like we already did it, but hey, there we go. And again, the radius 150 can either go here or on top and the 100 lower. It's a matter of preference, but both of them are correct. Just make sure we use diameter for circles, radius for arc. And notice the arrowheads are always pointing towards the center. Okay, so it looks like we have everything. Okay, everything looks good. All right, so don't forget to save your work. Okay, so that's the end of this video.